would stop me from making art? I guess that would be death.
In 1986, there was an open exhibition at Riverside Studios. Over 1,000 people put work in. Because there was an exhibition that proved that there were an enormous number of independent artists in West London that were hidden below the radar, Riverside Studios didn't know what to do. We formed into a group. Riverside Studios gave us an office in Riverside Studios in which we had a filing cabinet. Riverside was opening its hands to us to take advantage, to say, look, let's bond together and see, can we get more money by bonding together? Can we get grants? Very soon afterwards, the opportunity to go to Russia came along. It was from an idea by John Baraldis. He had contacts in Russia, and he was working for Riverside Studios.
In early 1988, the Moscow Union of Artists invited the Riverside Artists Group to exhibit in the USSR. During September, 30 artists, 60 works, 1,500 catalogues and many preconceptions travelled to Moscow for a unique cultural exchange. The group met both official and unofficial artists and gained a remarkable insight into the state of art in Moscow's changing society. At the Moscow Union of Artists, the British group first met their hosts, who, together with the Union of Artists of the Russian Federal Republic and the Union of Soviet Friendship and Cultural Relations, had arranged a full program of visits. Many talks and meetings were also planned, through which the British artists would gain a broad view of the scope, variety and cultural context of Soviet art.
Yeah, it can be done this way too.
And in that way, students can look and then they can approach us and then we can get to talk about each other's work, you know, what they're doing and things like that. So it could start off a dialogue.
Конечно, нас больше всего интересует диалог между, так сказать, между нашими коллегами. Это самая важная вещь. You will have an opportunity to see icons and the exhibition of Russian vanguard from 1917 to 1930.
But perhaps the most exciting visits were those to the studios of Moscow artists who, through translators, were able to give their British contemporaries a great insight into what it's like to be a professional painter or sculptor inside the USSR.
Well, he is full because he has so many...
The drawing studio of Anatoly Nozayuk, a sculptor who has had many large public commissions and whose work can be seen in many of Moscow's metro stations.
И для них это будет символ уже какой-то жаркой страны, что ли, или вообще символ пальмы вот этой.
And for them it will be a symbol of a hot country, of a palm, for them.
В Африке такое не может, потому что это символ уже не может. Видишь? Так, я тогда покажу еще.
Is that the same here, or how does it work? Do they take small numbers to train and then make, help everyone, or do many fall away?
So we have high institutes, artist institute, and we have medium one, more like technical institutes, schools.
Middle schools. In Britain, there's very little distinction between professional and amateur artists, in the sense that there are very, very few professional artists that earn their living entirely by their art.
Они работают, например, получают какие-то договора к выставкам. Тут есть,
просто условия лучше.
Да, есть один нюанс. Вот то, что спрашивали, сколько можно стать членами Союза.
When Anatoly wants to talk about what's happening in art in Russia today, does he talk with his friends in the union, or does he have friends amongst artists who do not belong to the union, who are doing something quite different?
He draws a similar, that if doctors will consult just public on the problems of the health, of healthcare, it won't solve all problems, it is not professional. You should discuss your problems with your colleagues, with professionals.
Вот сейчас у нас есть такая песня, ну там она длинная, но есть слова. Сейчас и сам не рад, что встретил.
Well, we have a song in Russia, and well, there is a line there that I'm unhappy now with what I have. And now this is the situation with him, because he's in he has a lot on his hands, a lot of things to do.
Sergei Gadayev works with several other sculptors in a studio complex of buildings adapted and paid for by the Moscow Union of Artists. As with many artists, much of his work is never seen in public, but he is awarded regular state commissions as a professional member of the Moscow Union. The Arbat Art Market. Here, the British group met many of the unofficial artists who work outside the context of the artist unions, and many friendships were formed. There was much to be seen, plenty to be done, but first there was Rag's own show to be attended to. The exhibition, due to visit several venues throughout the USSR, had arrived in Moscow, carefully packed in cases for the first showing of contemporary Western art that had ever taken place in the Moscow Union of Artists' galleries. Rag unpacked the work themselves. Finally, on the last day of the visit, crowds gathered for the private view. The works of 30 London artists were for the first time on view to the Russian public.
Selected by the group to come here. Were you excited to be invited here? Please.
художников и зрителей, и что делает открытие этой выставки действительным праздником.
Well, there is no doubt that the exhibition is going to be a real success, judging from the noise which comes from outside, judging from the amount of people who have come here, and we hope that that it's going to be a real holiday and festival for all of us.
Good luck your exhibition.
Oh, thank you.
Feel honoured that you have accepted our exhibition in these magnificent halls, that what and whom we have visited was very carefully planned and done with great sensitivity. We, the Riverside Artists Group, are greatly looking forward to this and shall start organising right away, and we only hope that we can do it as well as you have done it for us.
We were treated like proper artists. Most of us hadn't really experienced that before. They weren't saying, oh, you're just some little group from West London. As far as they were concerned, we were a Riverside Artists Group from England, from London. That was enough credibility for them. And that put RAG in a position where it became more notorious than it might have otherwise been.
In the history of RAG, we've had these big, almost theatrical, operatic moments. But in the meantime, between it, we've always carried on showing in small galleries, London galleries, some home counties, throughout, always.
We had a member of RAG, Jose Suarez, who came from Galicia. He was an artist painter. He suggested, why don't we have a show in Chantada? He developed the relationship in Chantada, the relationship in Orense.
And we showed it in museums, really big museum galleries. They did really professional catalogues. We didn't pay for this. Some of us also did residencies over there with Mercedes Paz, who was a collector and an art fan and a patron of some of the galleries. And the shows would be in the papers there. There'd be a lot of press coverage. To be on the TV, on the news, in your exhibitions, it was flattering as well as exciting.
It showed us that we could do things, gave us confidence, gave us the ability to organise anything on a shoestring. We were all volunteers, we weren't getting paid for any of this. We were also able to get some local and national funding. In Spain, you tend to find that most households have an original painting in it. They actually think of it as an important part of their culture. I mean, the paintings might not be very good, or they might be indifferent, or they might be really repetitive, but they do recognise the importance of the creative process and art to artists generally, I think. And in London at the time, it was very much commercial. I mean, it was either commercial or you had to be in various cliques to get recognised. For me, it was very much an awakening experience.
When I went on later visits to Spain, was this thing of being able to self-define as an artist, which I think is much more the European experience, whereas the British experience, you're only an artist really if someone else thinks you are, if you've got whatever, you're postgraduate, you're teaching, whatever. The credibility doesn't rest with you, it doesn't appear to. Whereas what I found in Europe was people didn't have to jump that gap. It's quite remarkable. They can do art, be artists, conceive of themselves as artists, and they don't question it, which I think British artists very often do.
I think it was 1996, 1997. The Tories had been in government for 18 years, and it felt like it was going to carry on forever. The Labour Party was reinventing itself. Tony Blair was the leader, and there was the hope in the next election that Labour would get in. It was really felt it was really time for a change. So all the progressive people in the country really wanted this to happen. We invited Peter Kennard, who's a world-famous political artist who does photo montage and quite cutting-edge stuff. And we put on this fantastic show just before the new Labour elections. The invitation card was a picture of like sweets, wrapped up, glossy wrapped, coloured sweets. I think we thought New Labour is offering all these sweets. They're offering all these tempting things.
What's going to happen when you unwrap the sweets? That was a good message in a way to say, well, there's hope, but what really is going to happen?
I'd now like to introduce Mark Fisher MP, who is the Shadow Minister of the Arts and has been for the last 10 years. And it's about time he was Minister of the Arts, I must say. And I'm sure he'll do a damn sight better job than the people we've got in now. It would be a very nice thing to have a politician who actually enjoys culture, engages with it, understands it, likes it, is not threatened by it. I think this will be something new. Anyway, we're honoured to have Mark Fisher here to open our show. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this show and for inviting me. I have to say I wasn't quite certain what I was coming to when I suddenly realised as I walked along here. And I think it's a wonderful show that has done exactly what it ought to do, made me look and made me think about things that are uncomfortable, about unemployment and about a sense of insecurity and free fall, about frustration, about what's happening to people in our community all around us, and that we avert our eyes. This interesting work immediately behind me, inviting people to cover up what they cannot face and look at. And there are lots of other equally potent images here. So it has done exactly what artists and art should do, in my mind, is throw me off balance and make me look and make me think. What is sad and implicit in Brian's introduction is that we have had politicians running this country now for a number of years that haven't recognised the importance of that and the role that artists and our culture plays in making us more, making us think, changing us. We still turn out amazing architects and designers and painters and sculptors and administrators and writers and poets. This magnificent centre that has given so much to this city for years is now so underfunded, and it's only the inventiveness and resourcefulness of people like Bill running it and the artists who work here that keep it going. But in a way, there is a metaphor in that even the neglect of this government cannot suppress what artists have got to say and what we need to say to each other. It is the artists and the architects and the painters and the writers that give identity, that give pride, and in very, very practical terms, give international profile. We have in this country one of the greatest communities of architects and writers, and I said almost all art forms, and we are undervaluing it. And I believe that we are just simply waiting for a government that was going to say, these are things that are central to our lives. They are not peripheral. They're not something that happens at the weekends or the edges of our life. The stories that we tell ourselves, whether in these sculptures or in poems or paintings or plays or films, these are central to our lives and they're important to this community. And you will get, if you elect a Labour government next year, you will get a government that believes that that is true, that the cultural life of this country is important and central, and something that we carry forward the difficult job of this country.
It's good that Mark Fisher came and spoke and that he saw the work and he realises there is a way that artists can actually intervene in political debate, that art isn't something separate, which is, of course, in this country is always talked about as being a separate thing from politics. And so the aim of this show is to show that one can make work that isn't propaganda but does actually relate to political events, and the events are crucial events at the moment. Debates about how one relates to the title New Labour. Should the work, be very obvious? How direct should it be? What sort of level should it be? And there's a lot of interesting debates that some of the members whose work has been very, well, they think of it as very apolitical, has funneled into a different way of thinking through the show. So I think the show's been a sort of educational thing. Hopefully it'll be an educational thing for the public as well.
I made a stencil and I spray painted the words "the working class" all over the floor. So everybody who came to Riverside had to walk all over the working class. My fear was that's what was going to happen, that the New Labour would yet again ignore the working classes and the poor. So it was in the Daily Telegraph, the Independent, national newspapers covered it. I think it was a moment where Rad got all this extra attention because we were hitting the mood of the moment.
Avron Pinter, Jermaine Wright, Amit Kamil, Kamil Ahmet, Thomas Harvey, Abdul Mahbub Chowdhury, Nadia Noor, Hachi Ali Dogus, Michael Alia, Sophie Fagan, Genevieve Burnett, Elsie Carnetta Chaplin, Vernal Millicent Bailey, Roy Galzini, Gary Mullins, Caroline, Esther Kumor Kwateng Dumfour, Vincent Marcello, Heather Chasen, Brian Lascelles,
An organisation such as this goes up and down. The energy goes up and down. And I think now the energy is returning.
Artists are often set against each other as rivals, or you're all applying to a show.
You're all competitors.
Yeah, competitors. But actually what happens in RAG is much more of a sort of openness to everyone having a part to play. That kind of competitiveness is actually very interesting if you overcome that.
Within RAG, friendships are formed. People have been brought together, and then people are not so scared of other artists. They realise they're just people. And we're all trying to do similar things in very different ways.
I came to RAG about 15 years ago. I had been ill for, well over a year. I had a young daughter. Life was quite demanding. My practice had fallen away a bit, and Jill phoned me to say that I think you should apply to Riverside Artists Group and get your practice going again. And so that's what I did, and it was fantastic because it was undemanding, it was non-judgmental, and it just made me make work to show once or twice a year in their group shows.
Most shows we usually have an artist talk session. So a number of the artists will talk about their work, probably in front of their work, which means that all the artists get over the embarrassment or the awkwardness of that and feel quite okay to be honest about what they're trying to do. We create a supportive atmosphere, people can do that, and it strengthens everybody.
I didn't realise the benefit of RAG until perhaps now, looking back.
Riverside Studios redeveloped itself, £25 million or something. They had an opening night coming up in a month or so, and they realised there was nothing on the wall. So the director phoned me up as a representative of RAG and said, "Are you interested in doing anything for this opening?" And of course I said yes. You know, because in a sense, we're the kind of group who can respond like that. We can just put the word out and say, can we step up for this? It's happening now, let's get it together. And of course we did. We've re-cemented our relationship with them. We're now having maybe biannual shows. And the beauty of having exhibitions coming up is it's a deadline, it's something to work to. It gives you an impetus to either conceive a new piece of work, to a theme possibly, or to finish what you're already doing. Once it's on the wall, you can reflect on it, other people talk about it, you get feedback, and you move on, you develop, you progress.